This happened a few months ago. I just moved to the city, looking for work and a fresh start. The apartment was small, but I loved the art scene. The place felt cool, even if the hallways were too quiet. I posted an ad for a roommate. I thought it would help with the rent. Then I got a message from someone named M. It felt strange at first. The message was vague. I could have ignored it, but I was curious. We agreed to meet. When M showed up, everything seemed fine. They were polite, but when I asked about their past, M quickly changed the subject. Their eyes were hard to read, and I felt a chill. I brushed it off. The next week, I came home to find a package at my door. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were odd trinkets, a small key, a cracked compass, and a rusted coin. There was no note. My skin crawled. Why would someone send these? Did M live here already? I felt a knot in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, but then the noises began. At first, they were soft like whispers. I thought it was the building settling. But then I heard dragging sounds in the middle of the night. My heart raced. I felt like someone was watching me. When I turned around, no one was there. I stared into the darkness, trying to make sense of it. I started avoiding the common areas in the apartment. Passing M's door gave me dread. The walls were thin. I could hear soft shuffling. Was M quiet or just gone? I didn't know. I thought maybe I was overthinking everything, but the unease grew. Was I turning into one of those people who imagine things where there was nothing? Then came the second package. This one had even stranger items, a small doll with painted eyes and a scrap of paper covered in weird symbols. I stared at it, trying to understand. Should I throw it away? Would that make it worse? Each time I heard the dragging sound, fear crept in more. One night, I stood at my apartment door, the hallway dark and long. My heart raced as I wondered if M was nearby. I took a deep breath and turned the knob. I heard a sharp whisper behind me, "You shouldn't have opened that." I turned around. No one was there. I felt something cold prickling at my neck. Was my mind playing tricks? I stepped back, bumping into the wall. The fear started tightening like a noose. I looked at M's door, the shadows shifting behind it. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't feel safe. I turned to leave. My heart thumped. Just as I took a step, the dragging sound came again but louder. It was so close. I froze. The whispers filled the air, "Let us in." I felt my breath hitch. The door to my apartment creaked as the shadows deepened. It was as if something was trying to push through. I couldn't move. What was happening? I would find out soon. I didn't know what to do. Should I call someone? The thought of leaving the apartment felt worse than whatever was waiting in the dark. I pressed my back against the wall, my breath shallow. I could still hear that dragging sound, relentless and closer every second. Suddenly, M's door creaked open a fraction. A sliver of darkness spilled out. I squinted, trying to see anything inside. Panic clawed at me. Was I supposed to go talk to them? Did M hear the whispers too? My feet felt glued to the floor. Then I heard M's voice, soft and almost soothing. "Come here." It was like a command but also an invitation. My heart raced from fear. I didn't want to move, yet something inside me felt drawn, almost hypnotized. "Please." It was barely above a whisper, but it sent a chill down my spine. I turned and bolted, my instincts screaming at me to get away. I rushed back into my apartment and slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. In the safety of my space, I leaned against the door, trying to collect myself. I had to think. I grabbed my phone and shot a message to a friend. Just a few words, "Need help. Things are weird." I hit send but got no response. My friend must have been asleep. I felt a wave of hopelessness wash over me. I glanced at the packages on the table. The doll's eyes seemed to follow me. A thought struck me. Maybe there was something in those items that could explain whatever was happening. Reluctantly, I opened the first box again, focusing on the key, compass, and coin. What did they mean? I picked up the key, studying it in the dim light. To what? I muttered to myself. Just as I was about to toss it back, I noticed something, the design etched into the key. It looked familiar, like a symbol from the paper in the other package. My stomach dropped. I reached for the doll, looking closely at its eyes. They almost appeared to change color, flickering in the low light. I set it down, repulsed, and noticed the scrap of paper waved slightly as if it held a secret. Those symbols felt heavy, oppressive. Then everything fell silent. I looked around, my heart pounding in my chest. No whispers, no dragging noises, nothing. Just the stillness of my apartment. I took a deep breath, still on edge, and reached for the paper. I could decipher a few lines, line by line, when I heard a knock at my door. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. It wasn't M's door, it was mine. "Open up," came a voice, muffled and low. My heart raced. The unease crashed back in waves. I didn't want to. Let me in. I was trapped. The knocking continued, steady like a heartbeat. My mind raced, flooded with questions. Who was it? What did they want? I glanced at the door, half expecting it to splinter open. "Open up." The voice was more demanding now. "I know you're in there." It sent a chill down my spine, and I felt an urge to hide. I didn't want to show weakness by responding. But that didn't stop my heart from thundering in my chest. I wanted to look through the peephole, but fear held me back. Instead, I leaned against the wall, listening. The room felt small, suffocating. The sound of my breath intensifying, drowning out everything else. Suddenly, I heard a scuffle outside my door. A dragging sound. My stomach twisted. It was just like before. The noises, it was the same. I had to do something. I took a few cautious steps toward the door and peered through the peephole. Nothing but darkness met my eyes. I frowned, pressing my ear against the wood. "Please," the voice came again, softer this time, almost pleading. "I need you to let me in." More panic flooded through me. Was this a trick? I could hear footsteps shuffling outside. My fingers fumbled for my phone. I needed to call someone. But my hands trembled as I pressed the screen, dialing a number. No signal. My heart fell. The line was dead. "Please, I can help you," the voice continued. "You don't know what's really happening." A wave of curiosity crept in, but it was drowned out by suspicion. Who was this person? How did they know anything about me? Then, out of nowhere, I heard the sound of glass shattering. My heart dropped, and I turned, ready to bolt. Another knock came, harder this time, as if someone was trying to break in. "I'm trying to protect you." The voice shouted, urgency lining their tone. Every instinct told me to run, but another part of me wanted to hear more. What were they talking about? Protect me from what? I needed answers, but fear wrapped around me like a vice. I took a step back, the key still heavy in my hand. It felt like a decision point. If I opened the door, I might find danger, or maybe help. But I couldn't just stand there, frozen in uncertainty. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and cut out, plunging my apartment into an eerie blackness. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. My breath quickened, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Let me in." The voice begged again, now sounding distant and unsteady. Whatever was happening, I could feel it rising around me, like shadows spilling in from the corners. I had to act, but what was the right choice? That S when I saw it. A glint of silver under the door. A key slipped through the gap, sliding effortlessly across the floor toward me. My stomach dropped again as I realized it wasn't just any key. It matched the one in my hand. What does this mean? I knelt down, my breath caught in my throat as I stared at the key. It slid right to my feet, as if it were alive. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. How was it possible that this key had just appeared? My heart raced not from fear now, but from a mix of disbelief and instinctual curiosity. Open the door. Trust me, the voice commanded again, desperation lacing their plea. I hesitated, the weight of the key heavier than ever. The darkness in my apartment felt thicker, almost suffocating. I could feel the shadows pressing against me, whispering my fears. Was I really supposed to trust this voice? Who was trying to protect me, and from what? Suddenly, I heard another noise, a low thud from within the apartment. My breath hitched in my throat. The sound was coming from the living room. Someone or something was inside. Please, just let me in. The voice shouted again, almost frantic. Each word felt like a lifeline, pulling at me. The hatred of danger wrestled with the desire for answers in my mind. I took a step toward the door, the key reflecting the dim light from the outside. Maybe I was being foolish. Maybe I should just ignore everything and find a way out. But I couldn't leave. I had to know. Fumbling with the doorknob, I felt the cold metal bite into my palm. My body shook, torn between fear and this unfamiliar urge to act. I peered through the peephole again, but the darkness was a suffocating void. I could feel the presence lurking just outside, waiting for me to make my choice. With a sharp breath, I turned the lock, cautiously opening the door a crack. Who are you? I asked, my voice trembling. Someone who knows, they replied, the urgency returning. They're coming for you. There's no time. Before I could respond, I heard a loud crash in my living room, followed by another thud. Panic surged, and I swung the door wide open, the silver key clattering to the floor behind me. Come in. I urged, desperate for help. But as I opened the door wider, the hallway stood empty, the shadows creeping forward. The voice was gone. I turned back toward the noise, my heart racing again as I felt the presence growing thicker behind me. Something was definitely in my apartment now, and it wasn't friendly. Then I heard it again, a low growl, echoing in the silence that had enveloped the room. My breath caught, leaving me paralyzed. I took a step back, feeling something cold brush past me, like a whisper of danger. What was happening? I was losing my grip on this reality. I needed to move, but my body felt heavy. That's when I saw something in the corner of the room, a figure emerging from the shadows, monstrous and looming. I couldn't move. All I could do was stare as the figure stepped into the dim light. It wasn't human. It had hollow eyes that reflected my fear back at me. And then it lunged. But just as it did, there was a loud knock again, this time from a different direction. I darted my gaze toward the front door, torn between two terrifying confrontations. How had things gotten so out of control? I felt like I was standing on the precipice of something unknowable. Was I facing one nightmare, or two? And which door would lead me to safety? I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure in the corner was advancing, and the smell of something foul filled the air. I had to choose: face the monster or go back to the door. Each option felt like stepping into a dark abyss. Run! I screamed at myself, finally breaking the paralysis that gripped my limbs. I turned and sprinted for the door. But before I could take 2 steps, the growling creature lunged. I felt its cold breath on my neck and dove out of the way just in time. I slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. Panting, I leaned against it, ears straining to hear anything over my thundering heartbeat. The growl faded, but I could still sense its presence through the wood. Who are you? I shouted, hoping the mysterious voice would answer me again. What is happening? My voice echoed into the tense silence. Nothing responded, and I felt foolish for talking to an empty room. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, waiting. I glanced around my apartment, searching for any sign of help. My eyes landed on the key lying on the floor. I bent down to pick it up, suddenly realizing it shimmered in my hand. There was something oddly mesmerizing about it, like it held secrets waiting to be unlocked. I turned it over, looking for any clues. That's when I noticed a symbol etched into its surface, a snake wrapped around a key. What does this mean? I murmured to myself, but I already felt a pull toward the bedroom. That door had always felt different, almost alive with every creak of its hinges. Just as I decided to investigate, I was interrupted by another loud banging. This time it came from the window. Ice settled in my veins. I had forgotten about that. My apartment was on the second floor, and nobody ever knocked on windows. I froze again, dread creeping over me. But if there was anything I learned in this moment, it was that standing still wasn't an option. I took a deep breath and cautiously moved toward the window. Pushing aside the curtain, I squinted into the stormy night outside. My heartbeat thudded in my ears as I searched for the source of the noise. And that's when I saw it, two familiar eyes looking back at me. They were friendly eyes. Familiar eyes. Is that you, Jenna? I gasped. What are you doing here? But as I looked closer, the fear returned in waves. It wasn't just Jenna standing there, she was being pulled back into the darkness by a shadowed figure, her mouth moving in a silent scream. Help! I shouted, but the words barely escaped my lips. The figure was strong, and in a flash, they vanished, dragging her into the night. My body trembled with dread. This couldn't be happening. Jenna was my friend. I couldn't leave her out there. I turned back to the door, the key heavy in my palm. My mind raced. Could this be the key to saving her? The voice echoed in the back of my mind, trust me. But could I trust it? I had to decide quickly. Jenna was gone, and whatever lurked in my apartment was still out there, waiting to ensnare me too. As I faced the door again, a realization washed over me. I hadn't just beaten a creature, I had been chosen for something, and that wouldn't end without a fight. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my grip tightening on the key. Then everything went dark. Suddenly, I was jolted back to consciousness. It felt like waking from a deep sleep, and I scrambled to gather my thoughts. My surroundings were shrouded in an unsettling silence. The darkness wasn't just in my mind, it filled the room, thick and oppressive. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes to the gloom creeping over my apartment. Then my senses kicked in. The key still rested in my hand, its cold metal grounding me, reminding me I wasn't entirely lost. I took a tentative step forward, hoping to find my bearings. My heart raced, and I felt as though I was being watched, the air buzzing with an energy I couldn't explain. Jenna? I called out, panic tightening my chest. No answer. Just the echo of my voice mocking me in the stillness. I couldn't let my fear get the better of me. She was out there somewhere, and I needed to find her. A faint sound drew my attention, a soft scraping noise, almost like nails on wood. My pulse quickened. It came from the bedroom. I hesitated, wondering if it was just my imagination. Still, I moved toward the door with the key clenched tightly in my fist. When I opened it, I was met with a scene that melted my insides. The room felt alive, the air thickened, and shadows twisted around the walls, curling and unfurling like tendrils reaching for something. I took a cautious step inside, scanning the darkness. That's when I noticed something glinting near my nightstand. I dared to approach it, heart pounding louder as I drew closer. My breath hitched when I saw it, a golden locket, the one Jenna had borrowed but never returned. I picked it up, feeling an inexplicable chill. Its presence felt more than just a misplaced item, it pulsed with an energy unlike I had ever experienced. "What are you doing here?" I whispered, clutching it like a lifeline. Then I recalled the voice from before, urging me to trust. Could it have led me here? I opened the locket, and a slip of paper fluttered out. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a small note, hastily scrawled, "Trust the key. Time is short." Confusion swirled in my mind, but one thing was clear, the locket wasn't just a trinket. Jenna had left me a clue, but the urgency in the note gnawed at me. I turned to the window, where Jenna had vanished, and glanced over my shoulder. The feeling of something watching me intensified. Shadows flickered around the edges of my vision. "I have to save her," I murmured, feeling the weight of the situation hang heavily on my shoulders. Suddenly, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. The sound echoed through my very bones, and I jumped back, adrenaline surging through me. "Get out!" A gravelly voice hissed from just beyond the door. The imperious tone sent shivers racing down my spine. "The key is not for you." My brain screamed at me to run, but I felt rooted. The locket in my hand burned with energy, as if urging me to act. I shoved it into my pocket and faced the door. Whatever was beyond it was not just a threat, it was a challenge. I took a deep breath. "I will save her," I said with newfound determination. But as I turned back to the shadows in the room, I heard a whisper, soft yet heavy with menace. "Not if I can help it." I stood frozen, my heart racing as the shadowy figure behind the door loomed larger in my mind. The voice echoed in my ears, sending waves of dread through me. Each second felt like an eternity as I decided what to do next. I couldn't let fear control me, not now, not when Jenna was still out there. With a burst of determination, I took a step back. I had to find another way, something I hadn't considered yet. I glanced around the room, desperate for an answer. My eyes landed on the dark corner beside my wardrobe, a space typically forgotten, but today it felt like it might hold a secret. I shuffled quietly toward it, every sense alert. My fingers brushed against the fabric of my old backpack, barely visible in the shadows. I rifled through it quickly, remembering the blanket Jenna used to tuck in there during late-night horror movie marathons. A sudden thought struck me: what if there was something hidden in the bag, something that could help me? I pulled the zipper open and reached in. My fingers grazed the cool metal of a flashlight. Relief washed over me for a moment. I flicked it on, and the bright beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the space around me. That's when I noticed, in the far corner, a box that I had never seen before. It was old, dusty, and looked like it hadn't been touched in ages. The lock on it seemed out of place, shiny and new compared to the box itself. My heart raced again as I approached it, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. "Please be something useful," I whispered under my breath. I knelt down and examined the lock. I couldn't read its intentions, but it felt oddly familiar, like something that could connect to the key I still held tightly. What if it opened the door to answers about Jenna's disappearance? I reached out and turned the key over in my palm, feeling its coolness against my skin. Would it fit? Before I could fully commit to the idea, I heard a soft noise behind me, a low growl that sent my heart into overdrive. I spun around, the flashlight beam sweeping the room, but there was nothing there. Just shadows that seemed to leer back at me. I stepped back towards the box, adrenaline pushing me forward. My fingers fumbled with the key as I inserted it into the lock. It slid in with an unexpected ease, and I turned it. The lock clicked open, releasing the lingering scent of musty air. As I lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. Inside was an array of objects, a small mirror, some crumpled photographs, and something that looked like a journal. The pages were yellowed and crinkled, filled with handwriting that seemed both frantic and desperate. But one thing stood out. A photo, faded at the edges, showed Jenna standing next to a figure I didn't recognize, a man with hollow eyes that sent chills down my spine. Right behind them, an unmistakable shadow loomed, stretching like a warning. I felt my stomach drop. "Who are you?" I muttered, staring into the chilling eyes of the stranger. And just like that, the shadows around me gathered, twisting and folding, drawing closer as I realized I wasn't alone anymore. Someone was in the room with me. I felt the air in the room shift. It was heavy, almost suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I stepped back, instinctively shielding the flashlight with my body, casting a wider beam across the shadows. That's when I caught a glimpse of something movement. A figure darted across the edge of the light, too quick to fully register. My heart raced faster. Panic threatened to overtake me. I grasped the box's edge tighter, glancing back at the photo. Jenna's face was bright, but the man beside her felt like a dark omen. "Jenna!" I called, my voice wavering. "Are you here?" Silence swallowed my words. I strained my ears, hoping to hear anything that could indicate her presence. Just the rustling of air, cold and unwavering, brushed against me. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow lingering near my door, almost human but not quite. The edges were blurred, as if it was shifting shapes. I couldn't tell if it was growing or shrinking, but it loomed like a dark memory. I aimed the flashlight there, illuminating a wall of darkness that felt thick and alive. "Who are you?" I managed, voice stronger than I felt. "What do you want?" I stepped forward, refusing to let fear freeze me. I had come too far to turn back now, not when Jenna was out there, possibly in danger. The shadow flickered but didn't respond. I felt a strange pull, like magnetic energy drawing me closer. Something inside me whispered for answers, but reason fought against it. What if it wanted to harm me? I turned back to the box, sifting through the contents again for anything that could help. My fingers flew over the journal. The last page caught my attention. It had a different kind of urgency. There was a phrase repeated over and over, in shaky handwriting: "Find the key, open the door." The words rang in my mind. What door? I felt my blood run cold as I considered the possibility that there might be another exit, but time was running out. I raised my flashlight again, casting wider beams at the corners and edges of the room, searching for another layer of this mystery. Suddenly, I heard a creak from the door behind me. My stomach dropped. "Who's there?" I shouted, panic flaring within me. The shadow seemed to solidify with that sound, pushed by an unseen force. The door swung slowly, revealing just a crack, but even that felt monumental. I pounded my heart, too afraid to move another muscle. "Jenna," I whispered, desperate for any response. But silence draped over the place like a heavy blanket. I fought to remain calm, but my instinct screamed for flight. Then, the shadow at the door lurched forward, and I knew whatever it was came to collect. In one swift motion, I grabbed the journal and lurched away from the box, preparing for a confrontation I could no longer avoid. If the shadow wanted me, it would have to go through me first. That's when I saw a hand, pale and cold, reaching through the gap in the door. And with it, a chilling realization: this wasn't just about Jenna anymore. Someone or something was coming for me next. The hand lingered there, trembling as if it were testing the air, or perhaps judging me. I couldn't move. Fear locked me in place, my breath stilled in my throat. My pulse felt like a drum in my ears, echoing the urgency of the moment. I tried to remember every story I had ever heard about hauntings and entities. None of them had prepared me for this. With a surge of adrenaline, I stumbled back, crashing into the box. The impact sent the contents spilling out onto the floor: old photographs, brittle letters, and the journal. I was losing the battle to remain calm. "Jenna!" I shouted again, but it felt hollow and feeble against the oppressive silence. The pale hand continued to stretch, fingers curling around the edge of the door. Summoning every ounce of resolve, I swung my flashlight back toward the door. The light flickered for a second, dimming before it burst into brilliance. The figure beyond the door became clearer, illuminated by my frantic movements. It was a woman, her face gaunt and shadowed, eyes sunken and dark like endless voids. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a flicker of recognition in her gaze, but it vanished, replaced by a hollow stare that made my skin crawl. "Help me," she whispered, her voice weak and rasping, like leaves rustling in a forgotten graveyard. I felt something inside me snap, an innate urge to help, even when my mind screamed at me to run. "Jenna? Is that you?" I called, hoping against hope that it was her. But as I leaned toward the door, the shadowy figure recoiled, almost as if my words had struck a nerve. The hand retreated, vanishing into the darkness. Just like that, it was gone. I staggered backward, the air thick with dread. I felt a rush of heat flood my face as I realized I hadn't gained anything. The confrontation left more questions than answers. Who was that woman? What did she want? And where the hell was Jenna? I grabbed the journal from where it had fallen and clutched it to my chest, trying to steady my breath. The urge to run was almost overwhelming. But I couldn't. If Jenna was involved in this, I needed to solve the mystery. I flipped the journal open, the pages crinkling under my fingers. Notes swirled across the paper, frantic scrawls mingled with drawings of rooms that seemed warped and twisted, reminiscent of the house I was in. Then I spotted something different, a small drawing of a key. Underneath it, a location was hastily noted. "Find the key to the attic." My heart raced. The attic. I hadn't seen a staircase. In fact, I didn't even remember what lay beyond this room. As if in response to my thoughts, a sudden clang echoed from above. The noise resonated through the walls, sharp and indignant. What the hell? I breathed, my pulse quickening again. Something was up there, and it wasn't waiting for me to summon the courage to follow. I glanced one last time at the journal, then back toward the door. Maybe I could find another way out. But before I could make my decision, the air shifted again. This time, the pull was stronger, almost persuasive. It urged me toward the door frame, beckoning like a whisper in the dark. I stumbled forward, driven by a mix of fear and determination. "I'll find you, Jenna," I vowed, crossing the threshold. The chilling realization that led me there became a burning question: what awaited me in the attic? As I stepped over the threshold, an icy draft swirled around me, almost pulling me back. The corridor outside my room felt longer than I remembered. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, like wisps of smoke barely keeping their form. I could hear the low thud again, more insistent now, but the direction was unclear. With the flashlight beaming ahead, I ventured into the narrow hallway. The atmosphere felt thick, dense with an unsettling energy. I glanced back at my apartment door, half expecting to see the pale hand reach out again. Swallowing hard, I locked my focus forward, pushing past mounting fear. When I reached the stairs, they loomed before me, dark and foreboding. The low rumbling noise came again, it echoed up from the attic. Each step felt like I was trespassing onto forbidden ground, the haunting dread sinking into the pit of my stomach. Whatever was up there was waiting, and I had little time left to reach Jenna. As I ascended, I peered up to find the attic door was ajar, a sliver of pale light bleeding through the crack. The sound intensified, a sort of rhythmic scraping mixed with a muffled whispering, like hurried secrets exchanged in a crowd. I felt expected, but not welcomed. I reached the top and pushed the door wider, stepping tentatively inside. My flashlight flickered, battling against thick shadows. The attic was a maze of disorganized stacks, boxes, old furniture, and bizarre artifacts that seemed to be intentionally arranged to block my path. The centerpiece was an old trunk, weathered and ornate, sitting high on a pedestal, as if on display. Curiosity battled with caution as I approached the trunk. The whispering grew louder, wrapping around me like a delicate thread, inviting yet ominous. My heart raced, sensing the magnetic pull of whatever lay within. I crouched down and examined the trunk, looking for a lock. There was none, a seamless structure that felt unguarded yet heavily weighted with secrets. As I reached out to touch the cold surface, I heard a loud crash below, followed by a guttural growl. Every shred of my instinct told me to turn back, but I pressed my palm against the trunk, feeling a familiar hum reverberate through my skin. This was the confrontation promised by the journal, the culmination of experiences spiraling towards this very moment. "Find the key," I murmured, recalling the note from the locket. The key was it here? Suddenly, the air shifted again, a rush of movement behind me. I turned too late to see the shadow darting into the corner of the attic, leaving an indelible sense of foreboding in its wake. I grasped my flashlight tighter, fighting the growing unease. "Jenna!" I shouted again, desperation creeping into my tone. In that moment, the key in my hand began to pulse with energy, vibrating fiercely as if it had a life of its own. The instinct was undeniable. I had to unlock this trunk. With trembling fingers, I lifted the trunk's lid. A rush of cold air burst forth, extinguishing the light for an instant. "No!" I breathed, panic surging as I shook my flashlight, trying to coax the flickering beam back to life. When the light returned, I peered inside. It was empty, no hidden treasures, no clues, only a thick layer of dust that swirled in the beam's path. Yet, beneath it, something glinted, a piece of glass reflecting the dim light. My pulse quickened as I reached down and pulled out a small shard, jagged and rough, shaped like a key. My hopes soared. Pulling it close, I could feel its warmth, like a heartbeat. But before I could process, a cold breeze flooded the area, and shadows coiled tighter around me. Whispers crescendoed, drowning my thoughts in their chaotic symphony. "Let me in," they pressed, filling the attic with dread. I staggered back, clutching the key shard tightly. Was this what whispered to me through the darkness? What did it mean, and who had I awakened? I glanced around the attic, the room warping with shadows, ghostly hands reaching from the frames of dismantled pictures. My breath hitched. I couldn't stay, but I had to understand. Jenna was out there, somewhere beyond the shadows. As I stumbled back toward the trapdoor, the whispers swelled into a hurricane of voices. "You shouldn't have come." They screamed now, each word piercing through me like daggers. I hesitated, holding the shard aloft like a talisman. Was this my escape or my undoing? With shaking hands, I made for the door. I needed to confront the uncertainty head-on. There was no other choice if I was to save Jenna. Before I could turn the handle, a deafening roar erupted from the corner. Something lumbered forward, the shadows formed a swirling mass beyond comprehension, an entity crafted from nightmares. My blood ran cold, fear had never felt so close before. "Unlock it!" The voices commanded, desperation dragging their tone lower, weaving a thread through every fear I clung onto. "You're not alone. Trust it." Drawing strength from the warmth of the key shard in my grasp, I took a breath, ready to confront whatever reality lay ahead. As the figure advanced, I stepped toward the door, fully aware the answers lay just beyond the threshold, whether through life or shadows. Whatever I faced next would reshape everything I knew. In that moment, I chose to face it, armed with courage and a shard of hope.